had probably the luckiest start in the whole world, in the universe, I think, because I happen to have a mother and father who are great parents. I've lived my life and thought to myself a million times over, thank God I had great parents. Some people wind up with one good parent, one clunker. So many people I've met and have succeeded with no good parents. I don't know how they do it, all right? What I simply did was I learned everything I possibly could, not even knowing it, from my mother, Florence. And I did exactly what she did with our family of 10 kids. I did that with building the corporate group real estate business. Who wants to be my assistant today?
I will.
All right, you take a seat, ma'am. I like the looks of this guy.
That's how that works, ladies.
I'm telling you, this guy would be great in bed. Any guy that could hop like that. Except I'm not sure if he's in my club looking at him. I'm going to jump forward now. I'm 23 years old. I'm working at the Fort Lee Diner, washing the counter, as I always did, spick and span like my mother's house, one counter. And Ramon Simone walks in. When he walked in, he had olive skin, jet black hair, blue aviator shades. You couldn't really see his eyes. He was the hottest thing I had ever seen in my life. He smelled differently. And I looked at him, and immediately I knew I'd be losing my virginity. And it wasn't as though I was saving it. I was a nice Catholic girl. I wasn't saving it. It's just nobody had ever asked me for it. And then Ramon Simone said, you know, you'd be great at real estate sales. I quit my job working for the Giafuni brothers, and he gave me $1,000, thank God, to start my business. Granted, I was sleeping with him, so you could say I slept my way to the top. But during those years, the first 7 years I was with Ramon Simone and the mom to his kids, we built the business together. We had 14 rental agents, and we were subleasing space in a small office building. And I was on top of the world. I couldn't believe that I was living in New York City. I was so happy. I came home one night, dumping pasta in the sink, and Ramon walks in and he says, Barbara, we have something serious to discuss. Oh, yes, Ray, I said, looking up through the pasta steam, thinking, I must look beautiful right now. And he said, I'm going to marry your secretary. You're going to have to move out. It was like a thunderbolt. I'm like, what? I thought it was actually a joke when he said I laughed. I'm embarrassed to admit, for the next year and a half, I went into the office. I looked like the same person, but I had no heart left. Why? Because Ramon Simone had found me. He had believed in me. He had shown me the way. He was a sophisticated man. I loved his children. We had a happy family together, and all of a sudden it felt like the rug was pulled out from under me. And I didn't even know who I was. So I'd go into work every day, and now Mrs. Simone, Tina, I constantly referred to her privately as the bitch. Which was unfair. I realized now as a grown woman, they fell in love. You can't help when that happens. And they're still together and have 3 more daughters together. So they were meant to be, not us. They were meant to be, right? And then finally one day, a year and a half later, I just walked into Ramon on a Friday and I said, you know, Ramon, I'm going to end the business and we're ending it today. This is how we're going to do it. And we decided which receivables would come to which person, and I announced to my 7 people, on Monday we're in a new office. I'll call you over the week and let you know where it is. On the way out the door that day, Ramon Simone said to me, you know, Barbara, you'll never succeed without me. And I'll tell you, no one could have given me a better gift than that, because I remember when he said it, it was like a knife in my throat, cutting right down my body. That's how the heat I felt about it. And I remember looking at him and saying to myself, I'd rather die than let him see me not succeed. He was wrong, of course, that I wouldn't succeed, and thank God I was able to sell the business for $66 million cash, which was like, for me, at the end of a fairy tale, when I sold the business, which was Friday night before 9/11. Talk about good luck. Yeah, I know. I remember sitting at my desk writing the corporate report because Lorraine Friedberg had come into my office whining. She was my biggest whiner. Yeah, you don't advertise for us. You don't, I thought if I had a gun in my desk, we would have taken her and killed her. That's really how I felt. But I'm like, how do I shut her up? And so I said, oh, I'm going to write a report, Lorraine. It's going to get a lot of publicity and stuff. I should have sent her away. And I sent it out to everyone who wrote for the New York Times that day, the sports writers, the news writers, because I just copied their bylines and hand wrote the envelopes. Never heard from them. But in 2 weeks, I'm sitting at home on Sunday morning, getting up, ready to go to the office. I opened up the New York Times real estate section, which was the Bible of the industry. Everybody read it. And I opened up the real estate section, and the headline says, New York City prices hit all-time low, which was true. And then I read the first line, it said, according to Barbara Corcoran of the Corcoran Group. I said, holy shit, this is the Catholic miracle Mom told us about. And so when the guy on Friday night at the end of the week introduced me as celebrity broker Barbara Corcoran, I almost dropped dead on the set. I almost wanted to correct him and apologize on air. But I didn't say it. He labeled me that because I had published a Madonna report. Did I get Madonna ever as a client? No. I wish I could tell you that. But I got a call from a guy who said, you know, you seem comfortable, blah, blah, blah. I'm thinking, this guy sounds important. I just had an intuition about it. He said, would you consider working with my client? Nobody ever asked me if I'd consider something. And who was the client? Richard Gere. Who would you rather work with, Madonna or Richard Gere? All right. This Asian woman walks up to me, and she doesn't mind me imitating her, so if you're Asian, don't be offended. She actually calls me all the time to ask me to give her her Carrie Chiang invitation. She walks up to me and she says, you know how much money I make? And I'm like, excuse me? You know how much money I make? Well, it took a few of those, and I finally realized, oh, do you know how much money you make? No, how much money do you make? I make $250,000 6 months. I said, $250,000 in 6 months? My top salesperson was earning $48,000 in a year. Do I believe this woman? I listened. Do you know what a good teacher I became? I was practicing and practicing to impress her because I have one goal. I'm getting that Chinese lady in my company. It's the last thing I do. You know? Right? And you know what Carrie's magic was? There was a new product in town called the condominium. And the condominium, no New Yorkers wanted to touch because you couldn't pick your neighbors. They were afraid. They like a board, like a country club thing at that time. But there were only 3 new condominiums in town that was under our radar screen. As residential brokers, we weren't even looking at them. We weren't selling them. Carrie, however, thought it made sense to have a condominium, and all of her Asian line of people coming out of Hong Kong thought it made sense too. She was the Orient Express out of Hong Kong and then out of Taiwan. And you want to know something? She single-handedly sold 80% of the units in those 3 buildings. She was making a fortune. Carrie Chiang became the #1 salesperson in all of New York City within 3 years and has never lost her position. She is the most amazing salesperson you ever want to meet. But here's what I learned hiring salespeople through all the years. I learned that the top salespeople get all the hits and rejections that you get if you're in sales. You know, you get 1 yes and maybe 9 no's. The top salespeople got more no's because they were handling more business. But the only difference between the top people and everybody else was not that they didn't take the rejection, but how long they felt sorry for themselves. When I was firing salespeople, it was rarely because they didn't have the talent. It was almost always because they weren't good at getting back up. I'm looking for the same thing. I'm looking for the guy or the gal that gets hit and is too stupid to lay low. When Mayor Bloomberg, who just left New York City as our mayor, great mayor, was in his office the first week, a strange thing happened on the New York subway system. A man had a stroke and fell into the subway right as the train was coming. Yeah, a young man, it's like 40-something. And there was a maintenance guy standing on the track, and as quick as that guy fell into the train track, sprawled across the train track, the maintenance guy jumped into the track. And he swung the guy's legs around, laid him between the track and laid on top of him. The train came over them. They were both unscathed, right? Why I'm telling you this story, because it has to do with this point. I remember watching Mayor Bloomberg, who was very clumsy then, like didn't know how to talk yet and everything. He got very, very good through his terms. He was given the key to the city to this maintenance worker, and he said to the maintenance worker, hey, how does it feel to be a hero? And you know what the maintenance worker said? I'll never forget. He said, I didn't know I was a hero till I jumped down there. Okay, very interesting lesson. I always remember that because I really think that's true. All the best things happened to me when I had the courage to jump, whatever it was, and then it all worked out.